The courage to stand alone. U G Krishnamurti. What was his real and only message? Good morrow, this is Chris speaking. Wake up with a second video about U G Krishnamurti and the courage to stand alone. Thank you for liking and subscribing. One of the most popular videos of this channel was the first U G video. At the same time, this was also the most controversial video of this channel and the one where I got the most hate mails about, which led me to believe that there are some very, very strange conceptions in people's minds about what U G said and meant. He was so clear and so simple, and still it's being misunderstood because we tend to interpret everything we hear the way we like to hear it, the way we want it, to confirm our own opinion. The last of U G's books was called The Courage to Stand Alone. He didn't really write them. There were conversations that were transcribed into books. Still, it's more or less directly from the horse's mouth. So, the last video was obviously still too complicated. U G's main and only message is: you are alone and nothing can change that. Don't run after gurus, don't listen to gurus, don't listen to anyone, only look inside and see what's real, verify everything, don't believe anything. But why does he sound so harsh or so negative? People always expect that gurus are very positive and loving and compassionate. Some are, and most of them are actually not very advanced. They're not enlightened. Once you're enlightened, you're beyond duality, so you're neither negative nor positive. Sure, U G didn't call it enlightenment. He just called it the thing that happened to me. The calamity. But he does talk about a sort of transformation, not only psychologically but also physically. The whole being transformed. And it was not the way he was taught it would be. He expected it would be. It was completely different. And thus he stresses the point that expectations never lead anywhere good. Once you expect something to happen a certain way, you look for it and ignore everything else. But what if it happens another way? You might meet the most important person in your life, or see the most important thing in your life, or experience the most important thing in your life, and you don't take it seriously, you don't really notice it, because you're expecting something else. You focus on something that you think you have to do today. We are all the time distracted with superficial nonsense. And once we enter the spiritual realm, the spiritual marketplace, as he says, with all kinds of teachers who most of them don't really know what they're talking about, the danger is there of a spiritual bypass, that you go from very superficial to a supposedly very high place in emulating and parroting your teacher or your guru. And in some traditions, like Tibetan Buddhism, for example, this is even taught that this is the right way, that you should emulate your teacher. You should pretend to be like your teacher as some kind of training. But how can you train for the unknown, for the absolute, for the infinite? You cannot. Nor is it a solution just to reject everything material. It's no solution to reject everything spiritual. It's no solution to reject everything material. It's no solution to be stuck in any kind of reaction. Least of all, a reaction to something someone else said or someone else claimed he or she experienced. The only thing that's real is your own experience, nothing else. And therefore you need the courage to stand alone. There's no one who can help you. You're on your own. We're always looking for crutches. And U G denied the world to use him as a crutch. So he stopped teaching. He still gave some interviews now and then, but mainly he stopped teaching. And in these interviews, he didn't say anything. The only thing he ever said is, I cannot help you. I do not want to be your teacher. Look inside. And everything else he says in these interviews, if you watch them on YouTube or you read them in the books, everything else he said is just, no, you're not going to pull me into your mind games. You cannot manipulate me. You cannot flatter or cajole me, or scare me or threaten me. I'm blank. I'm like a mirror. Anything you say, I will just throw back to you. So if you listen closely to his videos, you will see that he does not say anything as an action. He's just very calm. But when someone asks him something or claims something, then he will take it apart like a devil's advocate or like Socrates. People come to him and want confirmation that the philosophies or religions they adhere to are correct, that they are on the right path, following this or that ideology. And he says, no, this is not it. Neti neti. So like Jed McKenna, he was a big believer in further, always going further, which is the same, which is also true for Sri Aurobindo and Meher Baba. Never accept if a voice inside of you tells you this is the highest truth. Always go further. The possibility that there's a higher truth than the one you believe in right now is 100%. And why believe in anything? Verify it. If you can verify it, then you know it. There's no point in believing it. If you can't verify it, then discard it. Then there's no point in believing it either. And maybe something you haven't been able to verify up till now, you can verify it later. But right now, it's not true for you because you couldn't verify it up till now. Who is it? What is it in you that feels the need to believe something or in someone else? Why do you need a guru who conjures up hopes in you, hopes of something that this guru might have achieved? And even if he or she has achieved this, what does it have to do with you? The probability that your path is completely different is almost 100%. Everyone's path is different. That's why all these gurus quarrel all the time over who's right. Because everyone else's path is different. No one can walk the same path as another. So why try follow someone? I have received several mails that can be grouped into two groups. One is those who ask me, why do you compare UG to Meher Baba and Sri Aurobindo? They were so different. Yeah, they were different, but they were in the same stage, space, phase of consciousness, a very high one, complete enlightenment or beyond enlightenment or what you ever call it. So everyone else for them were complete beginners. And the second group of males was those who said, shut up. What are you talking about? Who are you talking about, UG? And those are the people who deified UG. For them, he's such a high authority that no one is supposed to talk about him. That's also not what he wanted. He did not claim to be an authority on anything, nor is there a copyright on his words or books. Because it's not a teaching, it's a mirror. And then a few people ask me why he is so negative. How can someone who's so negative be enlightened? Well, it just means you don't listen. I don't think he's negative at all. I think he's hilarious. Very, very funny. He just refuses to be manipulated. And that is a very rare thing. Most gurus are open to flattery. very much so. And then he helps people to see that they're stuck. That's very great service. Even if it's a little bit confrontational or even provoking. But there have been many such teachers in the past who were very strict. What we are usually used to is that teachers accept all kinds of nonsense and all kinds of spiritual bypassers, people who just sit there and nod and quote the master and have no real experience themselves. Well, and some teachers don't accept those people. They say, go fuck off, play your game somewhere else, I don't waste my time with you. And this can also be a help also. This can be a wake-up call. And apart from UG, there were, for example, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Gurdjieff, Bodhidharma. Not many, but several. So if you want to have a step-by-step explanation, then you can read Sri Aurobindo or Meher Baba. They're very explicit. Or even some Buddhist teachings, although they are often mixed with religion. For UG, you need a special sense of humor, and you need to be not a beginner anymore. If you get miffed or offended by everything other people say, then UG is not for you. Same as Gurdjieff and many other teachers. Who is getting offended here? About what? Someone is telling you the truth and you get offended? Well, then go back to your office job and bleat like a sheep. Meh. If you can't take the truth, then what are you looking for? In the spiritual game, you are alone. You can, of course, find some like-minded people that helps, and sometimes the advice of someone who is a little bit further than you also helps. But in the end, you have to find your own path. And for that, you need a lot of courage. A lot of courage. That's why most people give up. It's too lonely up there. And don't trust people who promise you something. How can they promise you something? How is that even possible? Even the divine absolute doesn't promise you anything, and it would be the only one who could do that. And actually it happens very often that people who wake up or get enlightened refuse their role as a teacher. They don't believe in that there's anything to be taught, and they just go on with their lives as they had before. Or they completely withdraw into the wilderness. Why not? But UG, he was groomed as a teacher. He was educated as a teacher by the Theosophical Society. He was supposed to be a guru, and thus he rejected this role. But he was still allowing himself to be interviewed now and then. And these are for me also nuggets of spirituality. So to summarize, there is no real message. There is no message to understand or misunderstand of UG. The only thing he insists upon is that you walk your own path and walk your own talk. That's it. Be authentic. Don't be a hypocrite. Just see what there is. The truth is out there if you want it, but then you have to be very open, very courageous, not expect or believe anything. Just be and look inside and see what happens. Don't focus on the outside. And yet also don't ignore the outside. There's a world out there. So if you decide that UG is not for you, it's fine. And if you decide that he is something for you, that there's something to be learned or gained, then my advice to you is listen to the videos or read the texts of his interviews, transcriptions, and see what he does with the questions asked. or statements claimed. How he turns them around like a mirror, like a Socrates. How he doesn't really say anything, but just helps the people to realize that they're stuck in their beliefs. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for joining me on Patreon. Thank you for liking and subscribing and sharing the videos with your friends. And see you soon.